referring even to a breach, more than 10 amas. And in the case of a chazar or a mava, it would indeed be a problem, even if only breach from.
Doing preparation for the class.
Avanti. Who are you listening to?
Daf Yomi.
Who? Who's the Magid?
Uri Brilliant.
Don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yaakov.
You got that look, Shlomo.
You're looking good. You're looking good, Yaakov. You're looking good. How are you doing over there?
Chaim, Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Yaakov,
Good.
how are you doing
Yeah.
over there? How are you
BH,
doing?
it's kind of, it's a bit cold.
Where are you exactly? In
Scottsdale.
what is it, like 40 degrees?
It's like 60 degrees.
60?
So we're colder. We're in the
Right.
40s.
You're colder? Oh, God.
Yeah.
The hottest is still going to be 12 lunchtime is going to be 60 degrees in late. And it's 41 now.
Nicht gut. Shlomo, you getting any sleep?
Gets better and better each day. Thank God. Thank God.
Hashem.
Good morning. Are we good, guys? Can you hear?
Yes, Rabbi.
Morgan, yes.
Baruch Hashem. All right. All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning ERUVIN Daf Tzadik Vav. We are in the middle of explaining the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Gamliel. The Tanach we determined was Rabbi Meir. When a person is moitzei tefillin in the Rishus Harabim on Shabbos, whether because of one not wanting to have the tefillin becoming desecrated, then there has to be a way where one will be able to bring the tefillin into a more secure location. So the Tanach of our Mishnah, which is Rav Meir, holds that you bring them in zug zug. That means you wear them one pair at a time. And the Rabban Gamliel holds you wear them shnayim shnayim. And as we began yesterday, the sugya, what's the machlokes between Rav Meir and Rabban Gamliel? Number one, whether Shabbos is zman tefillin. How is that connected? Because if Shabbos is a zman tefillin, then wearing two pairs of tefillin at the same time will be a Baal Toisef, or will, according to some Rishonim, appear like Baal Toisef, which is problematic. Shabbos Lav Zman Tefillin, there's lesser of a problem with Baal Toisef. Then we also mentioned the concept of whether mitzvahs boyi kavana, that's the lashon here, or whether mitzvahs loy boyi kavana, because the person who's wearing these pairs of tefillin, he's certainly not intending to fulfill the mitzvah. He's simply doing it to save them from getting desecrated. If mitzvahs boyi kavana, that's where we left off, then to violate Baal Toisef, you also need kavana. Okay, we're going to continue discussing these topics. Ultimately, we're going to be looking in the big part of today's daf, who is the Tana that holds that Shabbos is Zman Tefillin? So we're going to learn the sugya. How do you know Shabbos is not the Zman Tefillin? Why would the whole Shabbos is the Zman Tefillin? Maybe Rabbi Akiva is that shita. We're going to refute that. And ultimately, we're going to discover who are the Tanoim that hold that Shabbos is a Zman Tefillin. We're going to have a very interesting topic. We're going to learn on today's daf how Michal, the daughter of Shaul HaMelech, but referred to Michal Bas Kushi, she wore tefillin. Chazal did not protest against it. We'll understand what that means. V'chulei, v'chulei. We're going to, at the end of today's daf, go through another topic, which is related, and that is when a person finds wool dyed with what appears to be tchelas. And even if we know that it is taken from a chilazim, but as we know that when it comes to the making of the tzitzis, both when it comes to the spinning of the threads, and when it comes to the dyeing of the wool with tchelas, it has to be done lishma. So if you find tchelas bashuk, can you use it for the mitzvah tzitzis? In other words, can you presume that it was done lishma or not? And we're going to see that there's a difference whether what you find was already spun, whether a lot of effort was made, and these efforts are normally only made when you make tzitzis. In other words, whether I can say that since there was a toirach to bring it to this point, can that help me determine whether this was made l'shem mitzvah tzitzis or not? We'll see ultimately that toirach or loy toirach is also a machlokes tanoim and much more. We left off mamish on top of the amid, means that tzadik vav amid aleph all the way on the top. V'i bo yisema. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'yom. Okay, so where are we up to? We left off in the various options in explaining the machlokes. Tanach, which is Rav Meir holds, everyone holds, we said, that Shabbos is a Zman Tefillin. That was the last explanation that we had on Daf Tzadik Heyom and Beis. Elamam, question is whether mitzvahs boyi kavana or loy boyi kavana. Tanach, we learned the Gemara Lefi, the second Giras of Rashi holds, the last line on the Amid, that loy boyi kavana, and therefore, just like you don't need, if you wear it, Shabbos is Zman Tefillin, you're not wearing it for the mitzvah. I don't care. It appears like Baal Toisef, or some understand that you are Oivel Baal Toisef. Mashenkin Rabban Gamliel holds that mitzvahs need kavana, and therefore, since you're not wearing it for the mitzvah of tefillin, it doesn't even have the appearance. It's not shaykh to the isur of Baal Toisef, which is why you can wear shnayim. Why not wear more? We already explained that, because you have to wear the makim tefillin. Okay, this is continuing with Shabbos is man tefillin. Shabbos is man tefillin. And I can add the kula alma lotzes loy baya kavana, which is, by the way we paskin. But guys, let's not forget that here the issue is not being yoitze without kavana. Here the issue is whether you're violating the law of Baal Toisef or whether you're giving the appearance of violating the law of Baal Toisef by wearing it. That's something else. even if Lotzeis loy boy kavana, nevertheless, v'hachal la'avod mishum bal toisav komifligi. Beautiful. That the Tanakama again I've made will hold that la'avod mishum bal toisav loy boy kavana, as you don't need kavana Lotzeis, which is why he says only wear zug zug. You can't wear two. But the Rabbi Gamliel, even if he holds that to fulfill a mitzvah, you don't need kavana, but la'avod mishum bal toisav, for that you need kavana. And therefore, here again, your intent is not to do the mitzvah. Ubamela, according to Rabbi Gamliel, it's not shaykh to bal toisav, so you can wear tutu. Beautiful. V'iba yiseimam is fidel on the Shabbos man tefillin, which is the side that we were taking until now. Then indeed, the kula almem loy la'avoid boya kavana, v'loy lotzeis boya kavana, and therefore it would be a problem. No one would be able to say that you can wear tutu. This is the machloikas tanoim bilavoid. I'm sorry, if that's bismanoi. But however, that what? That being, let's go, that both sides hold that Shabbos is not the zman of tefillin. So now, a gewaltige question, if it's, you're not bisman, is it shaykh to bal toisav or not? You can say, when are you over bal toisav? When you're doing something with an addition on the time of the mitzvah. If it's b'chlal not the zman of the mitzvah, then even though bismanoi, you don't need kavana. Even though bismanoi, you don't even need kavana to violate, but now it's shaloi bismanoi. So Tanakama holds loy boya kavana. Look inside Rashi, 8 lines from the top of the Amid. The Tanakama sover shaloi bismanoi nami. Afilu b'loy kavana, it's still called a mitzvah, and therefore it's called a toisefes ima, which is why that's bal toisav. However, let's finish reading Rashi, then we'll read in the Gemara. But Rabban Ula Rabban Gamliel shaloi b'zmanoi ve'enoi meschaven, both these things together now ein kan remez mitzvah, and therefore ve'ein kan toisefes. Back in the Gemara, and real savar la'avar shaloi b'zmanoi. For that already you need to have a kavanah. In other words, even if it's shaloi b'zmanoi, if you are intending for the mitzvah, then it is a problem. Then it is a problem. But nisht, it's bisman, that will be this new, no one will hold that Shabbos is man tefillin, and therefore, the machlekes is whether now, la'avod, you need kavanah or not. Says the Gemara on this last explanation, which is the Tanakama, zug, echad nami loy, if you're telling me that Amir holds, this is that Shabbos is lavzman tefillin, and still, even lavod, you don't need kavana. And what's the problem here? Since Shabbos is lavzman tefillin, you can't wear 2 pairs. If Shabbos is lavzman tefillin, you should not be allowed even to wear 1 pair. V'oid, I'll prove to you that when you are on a day that shaloi b'zman of the mitzvah, there's no bal toisav. How do I know that? Because hayoshin b'shmini basuka, according to what you said, you should get malchus. What's hayoshin b'shmini basuka b'chal? When Chazal speak about the obligation of keeping sukkahs, many times they don't speak about eating in the sukkah, but they speak about sleeping in the sukkah. Now, b'chutz la'aretz, what do we do b'shmini? The mitzvah of sukkah is only for 7 days. Shmini Atzeres, there is no mitzvah of sukkah at all. Nevertheless, the norm is that since minig aviseinu b'yodenu, that we keep the 8th day, maybe the 8th day is the 7th day, because we don't know when the first day is. So therefore, we eat in the sukkah, or they slept in the sukkah. Now, we follow the opinion that you eat in the sukkah, you don't make a bracha. But how can you eat? How can you do that? Because no problem. If today is the 7th day, so I'm eating in the sukkah. If today is the 8th day, it's not sukkahs, it doesn't matter. No. If today is the 8th day, so it's shloi b'zmanoi. And if there is a Tana, which we read I've made that holds that it's shaykh bal toisav, shloi b'zmanoi, even though there's no kavanah, because what you're saying is that if today is the 8th day, I'm not doing the mitzvah. But even without kavanah, you're over, then how is anyone allowed in Babel or now here in America to eat in the sukkah on the 8th day? You should get malchus for that, for bal toisav. So therefore, it must be that if a mitzvah is taka shaloi b'zmanoi, there is no issue at all. If your kavanah is not to do the mitzvah, then there should not be an issue. There is no issue sitting in the sukkah. and nor is there an Israel not wearing one pair, not wearing two pairs. So this last option was refuted. Interestingly, most of the Rishonim say Kiddushanin Meikara, any of the prior options are great options, but the Rashi is going back over here to the first explanation we had in the Gemara. Okay. And that's maybe just to help the flow go better. What's the flow going better? So the kid said one of the ways that we explain the machlekes between Abi Meir and Abi Gamliel here is Shabbos is man tefillin, whether Shabbos is lav's man tefillin, and now we're going to try to find what does it come from? Why should Shabbos be as man tefillin? Why should Shabbos not be as man tefillin? Who will be the Tana, the Chlal that we know out there that will hold that Shabbos is Zman Tefillin? That will be the sugya from now on. Okay.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Just a quick question. If someone concludes that Shabbos is Lav Zman Tefillin, does that mean Tefillin would be Muksa according to that individual?
Well, that's what Dan Rom brought that up. That's a whole new thing. If Shabbos is Lav Zman Tefillin, there's certainly no Baal Tosef. There's no Baal Tosef. If I take the Arba Minim right now and I shake it, there's no Baal Tosef. It's not as much garnished. Now, yes, normally any article we learn to Hilchas Muksa when we learn Shabbos, there's Muchan and Muksa. For anything to be moved, I mean, it began, remember, with Nechemah ben Chachlaya. They were very makbid. Then 3 steps, they made it more lenient. But you have to have some sort of preparation to use it. That article needed to be, so to say, at least also designated for the use of Shabbos, like my chair. It wasn't made only for Shabbos, but it was made to be sat upon. It was made to be sat upon also on Shabbos. The moment something is not used on Shabbos, so generally this will become muktzah. That means it wasn't, certainly according to Rabbi Yehuda's understanding, it wasn't specifically muchan to be used. Tefillin was not muchan to be used. Enechanami. And we're being lenient over here. I mean, we will never allow a biblical violation for the cover of the kedusha of the tefillin, but yet the chachamim were lenient. They were lenient. I mean, that was the whole Mishnah that we learned. Even the other options of chaveira lechaveiroi, this whole concept, not the Rabbi Yehuda that says that you can always do this passing within Dal Damas. That's normally asur midrabanan. Chazal took away their darabanans in order to protect the tefillin, or if there's a child who's in danger, when there's a reason. Heim Amru, however you'll understand it, but you are allowed to do it.
So in some respect, Muksa doesn't really matter here because
it's only with the Rabbanan.
Right,
good.
Got it. Okay.
Very good. Okay. Now that's the question. Human shamat lei Shabbos man tefillin. This is such an important sugya. It's very easy. It's such important to know, like, where does it come from? We don't put on tefillin on Shabbos. From what? It all comes moededik. Guys, we say this so often. We say this every day. At the end of Parshas Boy, when we have the Parshas of Kadesh and V'hoya Kiviyacha. So look at it. So let's read it inside. So man shamat lei tefillin, Shabbos is man tefillin. We are beginning with this will be refuted that this is Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya, based on the pasuk that we have, like I mentioned, at the end of the Parsha of Kadesh, where it says, Vishomarto esachuka hazois l'moyadom yomim yomima. Guys, if you appreciate what's going on, open up a Chumash. In Shemois Yud Gimel, we read Pasuk Yud. This Pasuk is behemshech to the whole many prati dinim of Pesach. That's the beginning. Then one Pasuk prior to the one that we just read. Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Tes speaks about Tefillin. So you have Pesach, many psukim. One pasuk tefillin, and then it says in pasuk Yud, V'shamartas achuka hazois. Now, what does this chukah refer to? If you open up a chumash, you won't be certain. It's either going back only one pasuk. Chukah is referring to tefillin, or it's going to the parsha. It's going to the mitzvah of Pesach. Whichever one it's referring to, it says that you should guard it limoy ada in its appropriate moyed, in its appropriate season. Miyamim yamima. Miyamim yamima, from day to day. Now, yamim tells you days and not nights. Miyamim, from, it's an exclusionary mem. V'loi kol yamim, prat l'shabbasis v'yamim tlevim divrei Rabbi Yossi HaGalili. Notes Aleph, what's not spoken is that Rabbi Yossi HaGalili understands that even though this pasuk concludes a whole series of psukim regarding Pesach, Since one pasuk prior to this is pasuk Yud, pasuk Tes is about tefillin. V'shomarta sachuka, chuka goes on tefillin. So these limitations, miyamim, yamima, which are limitations, refers to tefillin. So from this we exclude sign that you don't wear tefillin by night, according to Hashita Midoy Raisa, nor do you wear it on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. Rabbi Akiva Omer, no. Even though you're right, Pasuk Yud comes behemshach to Pasuk Tes, but Pasuk Yud is coming behemshach to the ganze Parsha. The Parsha is not about tefillin. Parsha is about Pesach. That loinemar chukazu elonim Pesach bilvad. And there's many details here. So stop just to know the yamim yamima tefillin makes sense because tefillin without these exclusion you put on every day. Pesach is once a year. Einachanami, according to Rabbi Akiva, the words miyamim yamima doesn't mean from day to day. You should follow this. You should follow this chukah from year to year. Sometimes you can understand it. So there's so many detailed kashas one on the other. But we see clearly that there's a machlekes tanoi, whether this pasuk is going to tefillin, whether this pasuk is going to Pesach. According to Rabbi Akiva, that it's going to Pesach, there is nothing that's excluding tefillin. Which l'chu'ura should mean that according to Rabbi Akiva, you put on tefillin at night, you put on tefillin Shabbos and Yom Tov. So the Gemara says, no. If it's indeed Rabbi Akiva, Mishnah and Krisus, the Mishnah is speaking about B'chlal, the rule is Kares, you're only chayiv if Kares and Chatas go together. Wherever there's a Isur Kares, if you do it B'sheg, you chayiv Chatas. Then we also learned in the beginning of Krisus that normally a Kares and Chatas, let's speak about Kares, is for a lav. But there are two mitzvahs asay, only two, that if you violate a positive commandment, you also chayiv Kares. And what is that? That's Pesach and Bris Milah, with all the pratim we learned in Krisus. Now hold on. So one would think, that sins for Pesach, sins for Milah, b'mezid, a person is chayiv Kares, maybe b'shoigig chayiv Chatas. So we learned in the Mishnah that you're not chayiv Chatas. Because to be chayiv Chatas, you have to violate a lav. And Pesach and Milah is a mitzvah say, and therefore that's the content over there. Even though you're chayiv Kares, but you're not chayiv Chatos. Now, Lema, to like Rabbi Akiva. According to what we learned, this Mishnah cannot be Rabbi Akiva. Why? Now that we showed you the Braisa, it's a Braisa, that Vishamarta esachuka hazois, according to Rabbi Akiva, goes to Pesach. The Rabbi Akiva, Kiva the Megillah Pesach, Lav Nami Ika. This pasuk that we quoted is also a lav. Where do you have the lav? Because the pasuk uses the words vishamarta and kiderebi oven amer abiloi the amer abiloi kol makem shenemar. The word hishamet, like we have over here, right? Take care, or pen, lest, or al, do not. Einoi ela beloi saseh. So the chura, according to Rabbi Akiva, you should like if you chayiv kares. Chayiv chatos. If a person did not bring the Pesach b'shoigig, but there is no such shita. So the Gemara says, "Afilu teima Rabbi Akiva," and Rabbi Akiva, yes, subscribes to the general rule of Rabbi Oven Amar Rabbi Loi. However, when the word in the Torah of Hishamer, or like over here Vishamarta, is written in the context or in connection to a prior, God says, "Don't do something, beware," then the word itself has the status of a lav. But whenever the word Hishamet is written in the content, in the parsha of Enasei, there is never no written by Pesach. God says, yes, what to do. So then, even according to Rab Oven Amar Rabbi Loi, the word Hishamet here also means be careful to keep the asay. There is no lav, and therefore the Mishnah and Krisus will even follow Rabbi Akiva. Yes, you're chayiv kares, God forbid, for not bringing the Pesach b'mezid, but b'shoigig there is no chatos, not only not for Pesach and not for Milah. Says the Gemara, okay, hold on. V'saba Rabbi Akiva, Shabbos man tefillinu, v'hatanya Rabbi Akiva omer yochol yaniach adam tefillin, v'shabbos is v'yomim tovim, which is what we're saying. Clear but nice. Talmud Leimer, this is another pasuk where it says v'hoya. This is also from Parshas Boy, the beginning of Parshas Boy. V'hoya. No, I'm sorry. This is the pasuk test. This is the 9th pasuk before the 10th pasuk. V'hoya l'chol la'ois al yadcha. We read this every day. So since the Torah calls it an ois, by the way, the Torah calls tefillin an ois, also in Parshas Voschanan and Parshas Ekev. We're bringing this pasuk because this is the first time it's mentioned. So says the Braisa, a day that needs a sign that shows that we are God's chosen people. On such a day, tefillin is the sign. Yatsu Elu goes Shabbos and to Yom Tiv. Shein Gufan Ois. And like Rashi tells us, in Parshas Kisisa, we have the pasuk Ki Oisi Beini Ubeinechem. Now the Parshas Kisisa is about Shabbos. However, we also know, guys, from Parshas Emor, this is important because the Tzedukim argued that when it says by Shavuos, Mi Macharas HaShabbos, to begin counting, what does Macharas HaShabbos mean? Not the way they said on Sunday. Mi Macharas HaShabbos means we begin the day after Yom Tiv. Rashi says in Chumash. So in other words, the Torah calls Yom Tiv also Shabbos because it's a day that we refrain from working. And since the Torah says in Kisisa, regarding Shabbos, which also alludes to Yom Tov, Ki oisi beini ubeinechem. So you don't need tefillin on Shabbos. So what do we see? Rabbi Akiva clearly holds that you don't put on tefillin on Shabbos. So Shabbos is not excluded, according to Rabbi Akiva, from the Vishamarta Sachok says miyamim and achanami. Rabbi Akiva says it goes to Pesach, but Rabbi Akiva excludes it from the ois. So therefore, again, we're looking for a Tana that holds that Shabbos is Mantfil. Elo, hi Tanahu, the Tanyon, Neir Balayla, if a person is awake at night and he has tefillin on him, Ratza Choylitz, if he wants, he can remove it. But Ratza Maniach, very important, even though normally Maniach would mean put them on, not over here. Maniach here means if they are already on, if you want, you can leave them on. Now, Rasha, if you want, you can, guys, let's leave the last line in the narrow lines. Ratza Maniach. The Einoi Kemoisev al HaMitzvah, that will be the Shita, because the Laila is Zman Tefillin. Even according to the Shita, that Laila is Zman Tefillin, which is why you may leave it on, they also hold that Rabbanan who degazed not to wear them at night, Shema Yafiach Kishahu Yashin. And therefore, this Tana holds, if you're not sleeping, that's going back to this Braisa, if you're not sleeping, right, you are Neyor, so now there's no fear that maybe Shema Yafiach at this moment. So if you want, you can leave them on. But basically, this Tana, which is Rab Nassan, holds that Laila Zman Tefillin. Now, Rabbi Yoinason Haki Toini Oimer, no, Ein Manichin Tefillin Balayla, because it's not the time to put on Tefillin. Now, we have now a sheet of Rab Nassan, so the Gemara says that the Laila Latana Kama Zman Tefillin. Clearly, let's go back to the pasuk that we have in Boy. If he would have learned that Vishamarta Sachuka Hazois would have been referring to Tefillin, he certainly would not have said so, because then Yamima would have excluded the nights. So he again must learn that pasuk in Boy, pasuk Yud Gimel, is referring to Pesach, which is why night is a Zman of Tefillin. So l'chayre, he'll also hold Shabbos Nami Zman Tefillin. Because again, it was from the pasuk in Vishamarta, from that pasuk we also excluded Shabbos. But if that pasuk is speaking about Pesach, then we're not excluding Shabbos. So the Gemara says, just like by Rabbi Akiva, we said that there is another exclusion for Shabbos. Maybe the Tana Rebbe Nassan has the same thing. Dilmaf, Gemara pushes back, Laila Taka Zman Tefillin. Because the pasuk in Boy Vishamarta Sachuk Azois is speaking about Pesach. However, Shabbos loves Man Tefillinu because of the other concept of an ois, as we just find by Rabbi Akiva. The Hashma'ina Leila Rabbi Akiva, the Amar Laila's Man Tefillin, and yet Rabbi Akiva holds Shabbos loves Man Tefillinu. Okay, no, we have to make it clear. It's not only Rabbi Akiva that Vishamarta Sachuk Azois is not the only source to exclude Shabbos. Okay. Elo, who's the Tana that holds that Shabbos is this man of Tefillin? Elo, hi Tanuhu. De Tanya. Guys, listen to these words. Michal Bas Kushi. Michal Bas Kushi. Kushi refers to Shaul HaMelech. Says Rashi. We find that in Tehillim. Al Divrei Kush Ben Yamini. Why? He brings from Mayat Katan. Why was Shaul called Kushi, says the Gemara, that just like when it comes to a Kushi, the color of one's skin is not debatable, it's distinguishable. the tzidkis, the purity, the gewaldigkeit of Shaul was so clear, no one can deny that he was a tzaddik. We have something similar in Chumash Rashi, right? When it comes to the wife of Moshe Rabbeinu, Cushis, similar to that. But coming back over here, Michal Bas Cushi means Michal, one of David HaMelech's wives, the daughter of Shaul HaMelech. Hoysa manachas tefillin. She would wear tefillin. Now what is, I should have spoken this out by the intro, what's the issue of being moicha, not being moicha? This is very, very important. So guys, this is one of the few times that we're going to learn a machlokes tanoim, ERUVIN Daf Tzadik Vav, whether women who are not obligated in any mitzvah saseh shazman gerama, they are exempt from a time-bound mitzvah, whether they violate Bal Toisev if they choose to do it. Don't get nervous. There's a machlokes tanoim. We paskin that they're not oived on Bal Toisev, but there was a machlokes tanoim. So we're going now with the presumption that if it's a mitzvah saseh shazman gerama, then if a woman would put on tefillin, she's violating any Isur D'Oraisa. The fact that the chachamim were not moicha, that l'cha'ira is a raya that tefillin is lav zman gerama. How is tefillin lav zman gerama? If tefillin you have to put on by day and by night, and in the weekdays and on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, good. Then tefillin is lav zman gerama. So this will be the Tanach. Now there's another nuance which is very important. Even let's go right now. If it's a mitzvah saseh shazman gerama u Bal Toisev, even if there's no Bal Toisev, there's another issue with women putting on tefillin. And that is that when you wear tefillin, you have to have a guf naki, being that women, by nature, they get their period, and they can't control it. So by a man, one of the reasons why we don't put on tefillin before the end, we put on tefillin 2 months before bar mitzvah. Why not be machanach when the boy is 6 years old? Because shama yafiach, al pinigla, and it's hard to control your body. But when you get older, you can control it. A woman cannot control when her period comes. So if you're not obligated, even if you're not oived on Bal Toisev, but you're doing something beyond the letter of the law, don't do beyond the letter of the law if you're going to end up breaking the law. Because if a woman were to have her flow while she's wearing the tefillin, that's already a bezoin for the tefillin. That's the reason why now in halacha, if a woman wears tzitzis, it says in Shulchan Aruch, don't protest. If a woman wears tefillin, protest because of guf naki. Now, if a woman is very regular, and she's very conscientious, and she'll be careful to know that she'll never wear the tefillin near the time that she's going to get her period, then she can wear it. So that was Michal. So Michal didn't wear tefillin the whole time, but she knew with certainty that in these days, I will not get my period, and she wore the tefillin. But again, I'm speaking now about the guf naki. But if if tefillin, if Shabbos loves man tefillin, this is going to be the svara now, which means it's a mitzvah saseh shahazman gerama. Then if you wear tefillin, you're oived on Bal Toisev. If you're oived on Bal Toisev, the chachamim would make a macha.
Rabbi,
yes.
In general, is that the way we hold that a mitzvah say shahazman gerama, women are not allowed to do it?
I just said, Danny, there's a machlokes tanoim, and everyone.
Well, I'm saying zman hazeh, women do mitzvahs that are zman gerama. They sit in the sukkah with us.
That women are not oived on Bal Toisev. We paskin like those tanoim, but there's a machlokes rishonim, whether, even though they're not oived on Bal Toisev, whether they can make a bracha. Machlokes rishonim, and here is where Sfardim and Ashkenazim differ. That we Ashkenazim paskin that you can make a bracha, and therefore you should make a bracha. Ay asher kidishanu b'mitzvaysa vitzivanu. There's no vitzivanu. Says Toisev vitzivanu us Klal Yisrael, and the Sfardim say they may not make a bracha. This is important. We go muftzayim. When you stop a woman to shake the lulav, if she's a Sfardish woman, don't make the bracha. Don't make the bracha. Then you have maybe an exception when it comes to birchas kriya shema. Kriya shema is mitzvah saseh shazman gerama. And we paskin, there's no Bal Toisev. Women can read the shema. It's not good for them to read the shema. How do you view birchas kriya shema? If it's the classical birchas mitzvahs, then women should not be allowed to say it by the Sfardim. But many Sfardish poskim held that birchas kriya shema is not like your normal birchas mitzvahs v'harai. You don't say asher kedeshanu b'mitzvayis v'tzivanu likreis shema. Anyway, that's a whole topic. Avadi Yosef had a very strong opinion. Let's come back over here. The ishta shel yoina nachaditel hoisa oila l'regel. Now Aliyah's l'regel, here there's no debate. Aliyah's l'regel is for the regel. It's a mitzvah saseh shazman gerama. Women are exempt. She went up. Why did she go up? The Ben Yehoyada says, because her husband, you understand, was fleeing the presence of God. So she, part of the tikkun was, she always, whenever there was an opportunity, she went to be seen and to see the presence of God. And we're going to come back to this in a moment. This is very enlightening, this line about Ishto Shel Yainu. So now let's go back to the Michal Bas Kushi. Mi doloi micho b'chachamim. No, that's only because there's a gufnaki issue and she was unique. But Alma Kasavni Mitzvah saying, Shaloi Hazman Garama. Clear, Danny. This Gemara is going with the Shita that if it would have been a Mitzvah say Shazman Garama, then a woman would not be allowed to put on tefillin. So the Gemara says again, this is not a Tana, because V'dilma Savar Law, this Tana holds that Tzadik Vavamid Beis, like Rabbi Yosi, like whom we paskin, Rabbi Yosi Nemukai Imai, that Nashim Soimchais Rishus. That is the classical ground zero case. What does Nashim Soimchais Rishus refer to? Reminds us Rashi, when men bring, not all korbanos, most korbanos, the last thing that's done before Shchita, Tekev le Shchita, Tekev le Smicha Shchita, is that we men are obligated to lean down on the head of the animal with both of our hands, with all of our might. And whether it's a carbon chatos, we say vidui. Whether it's a carbon shlamim, we say words of thanksgiving. And I think Rashi reminds us, mamash in the beginning of Vayikra, Daber el Bnei Yisrael, that's the beginning of Parshas Korbanos. Bnei Yisrael is to exclude Bnei Yisrael, but women bring Korbanos. But it says in Pasuk Dalet, V'samach yodoi. So Chazal are doirish, the Bnei Yisrael from Pasuk Beis, and the Samach and Pasuk Dalet, Bnei Yisrael Soimchim. The Loi Bnei Yisrael Soimchim. This has nothing to do with Mitzvah Seisha Azman Garama, but this has everything to do. This has everything to do with women are not obligated to lean their hands if they want to, So Rabbi Yosi allows them. Then there's no Baal Toisef. So you can say that maybe the Tana holds that Shabbos is Lavzman Tefillin. Why weren't the Chachama with Michal against Michal? Because so what that it's a mitzvah seisha azman gerama. And I'll prove it to you. Now it's Gavaldi. Because the Eloi Teimahachim, that this Tana subscribes to the Shita of Rebbe Yosi, as we do in Halacha, that Ishta Shal Yoino, how can that be? For sure, Aliyah's Leregel is a mitzvah saseh. The obligation is only on the men. And if women, therefore, would not be allowed to, then they would be moicha. Ella, this Tana for sure holds that it's reshus. Hachinami, when it comes to Michal, Bas Kushi, it is reshus. For some reason, Mishugas, people that Rashi's daughters wore tefillin. There's no source for that. I don't know why people quote that. This is a better source. When people want to say that woman wore tefillin, this is it. We just learned it. That Michal Bas Kushi, she wore tefillin. And again, the issue is not mitzvah saseh. The issue is gufnaki. B'chlal, women today are extremely irregular compared to how they were in the times of Chazal. So you can't even compare it. And we see clearly that she was unique, Michal, because she was very regular and because she understood the importance of having a gufnaki. And in Shulchan Aruch it says that when women fulfill talis, if a woman wears a talit, not to make a protest. She wants to get close, don't protest. When a woman wears tefillin, to be moichel. Now you have to know how to be moichel. You have to learn the Alter Rebbe. You have to have Abbas Yisrael. But
Rashi's daughters, we say the Kabbalahs that they did wear tefillin, right?
No, nowhere. There's no source anywhere that Rashi's daughters wore tefillin. Anywhere. Okay. Ella, there's nothing wrong bringing Michal. Michal is the Michal, but she was a great woman. She wore tefillin. And v'loy michoba. Right. Ella, again, we're looking for a Tana that holds that Shabbos is Zman Tefillin. Ella, Haitanahi, the Tanya, our Mishnah Gavaldik. Hamoitzi Tefillin, Machnisen Zug Zug. That was the Tanakama, that's Rabbi Meir. Echad, but now the Brais elaborates. Echad ha'ish ve'echad ha'isha. A woman wears the tefillin to make sure it doesn't get desecrated. Another detail of this Shita, the Rabbi Meir, echad chadashis ve'echad yeshanos. As we explained, that people used to make kameyas that looked mamish like tefillin. The only way you knew that it doesn't have the kedusha of tefillin, is that they didn't make the knots with the letters of God Almighty. And again, we're speaking about you finding the tefillin with its straps. The knots on the straps. The straps are unfolded, are unknotted. But if they're old, not that old, a little bit old, you can already see the creases in the tzuas. So you can see whether it has the letters of God, therefore you know it's tefillin, whether it's a kameya. If it's new, then you don't know. But this Tana holds there's no difference. You can presume that what you found is taket tefillin, and therefore you are obligated by wearing them to make sure that they don't remain out there and God forbid get desecrated. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda oiser b'chadoshes. It's our Mishnah. That detail is like Rabbi Yehuda. He's only matir b'yeshanos. We're going to get back to that in a moment. Like we said, toirach v'loy toirach is tanoi. Says the Gemara at kamloi pligim ela b'chadoshes v'yeshanos. Right? Like again, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that by chadoshes we suspect maybe it's a kameya. But regarding whether a woman can wear it or not, both of these Tanoim hold that a woman may bring in the tefillin. So here again, Shmami no, now I'll tell you, both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda holds that Shabbos is a zman of tefillin, which makes tefillin lav zman gerama. And therefore, you don't have Bal Tosef, you don't have the appearance of Bal Tosef. So the Gemara is going to say, hold on, didn't we just quote Rabbi Yossi? The Gemara is going to prove to you that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, they don't hold like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is the Tanach, like we paskin, that even a mitzvah say, Shazman Gerama, women are not over on Bal Tosef. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda hold that a mitzvah say, Shazman Gerama, if a woman opts in, she's violating Bal Tosef. So now we found who holds Shabbos man tefillin, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Again, the Dilma Savar law.
Rabbi, but wouldn't that mean that according to them, a woman, if you're saying it's a mitzvah seisha loyazman grama, they would be chayiv to wear it every single day?
Yeah, no. So here we tell them that because of the gufnaki,
that's a reason that they should not fulfill a mitzvah that they're really chayiv to do? I mean, right now we're, wow.
I'll get back to you on this.
Okay.
Okay. All right. The Dilma.
Rabbi, a question on that.
Just to make it clear, they for sure did not put on tefillin. If not, there would be no yichus at all with Michal Baskushi that she put on tefillin. This question is only, I don't know why, Danny, I don't know why, but this question is only whether they're oiver and Bal Tosef, or whether not oiver and Bal Tosef. Now that we're going to prove that Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda holds that if a woman is exempt because it's Zman Geram, then she's not allowed to do it.
Rabbi.
Yes, no.
Gufnaki, if a woman comes in and says that you never had a period, that meaning she's a gufnaki?
In this context, just to know, gufnaki refers to the period. When we speak about gufnaki, everything else, men and women are the same. When you look in Shulchan Aruch, it speaks about women because we pass on like Rabbi Yossi. The gufnaki means that that's one bodily function that the woman has no control over. Okay, says the Gemara. Maybe they hold like Rabbi Yossi. Loi sal kadaitach. No, the Loi Rabbi Meir sal like Rabbi Yossi, and the Loi Rabbi Yehuda sal like Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara proves it to you. Loi Rabbi Meir sal like Rabbi Yossi. Tnan ma Mishnah in Mesechta Rosh Hashanah. That we don't stop. We meaning we, the parents, we meaning the Beis Din, Rashi says, we're not obligated to stop a child who's blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah because it's good for his chinuch. Now, nashim, if a woman were to blow the shofar, right, then ma'akvin, we will stop them. Why would we stop a woman from blowing the shofar? And don't come, Rashi says, and tell me because there is a malacha involved. There is no malacha involved in blowing the shofar. If someone says they had a hard time blowing the shofar, that's because they don't know how to blow the shofar. As Chazal tell us that kiyah shofar, uridiya sapas, taking the bread out of the oven, taking it off the walls of the oven, it's chachma ve'ena malacha. And b'chlal in life, the less chachma, the more malacha. If you don't use your head, your body pays the price. But if you know what you're doing, then it's not that difficult. The only issue with women blowing the shofar must be that since they're not obligated, them blowing is Bal Tosef, clearly. Now, that Mishnah doesn't say who authored it, but Vistam, Masnisen, Rabbi Meir, that's enough. So that's the source that Rabbi Meir does not subscribe to Rabbi Yossi. Invited, but like Rabbi Yehuda, so like Rabbi Yossi. How do we know that? Because the Tanya, here recording a Braisa also doesn't say Rabbi Yehuda, but we'll know that it's Rabbi Yehuda. When it says, we're going back to what we learned on top of the Amid regarding Nashim Soim Chois, Rishus or not. David al Bnei Yisrael, Vayikra Aleph Pasuk Beis. Then it says, two psukim later, Pasuk Dalet. It says, V'samach Yadoi. So Chazal, Adoirish the Smuchin, even though we're jumping over, we're being Pesach over Pasuk Gimel. Bnei Yisrael Soimchin, the Ein Bnei Yisrael Soim Chois, meaning they're not allowed to. We don't do a Nachas Ruach L'Nashim, as Chazal say. However, Rabbi Yossi and Rab Shimon, good to quote. I know above in the Amid we quoted Rabbi Yossi because Rabbi Yossi Nemuka Yimoy, but Rabbi Yossi was not alone. So now it's becoming clear. It's Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda on one side, and Rabbi Yossi and Rab Shimon on the correct side, on the halachic side. Both are correct, but we paskin like them. That the Rebbe Shimon, Nashim, yes, Shemchas Rishus. Now we don't know who the Tanakama is, but we have a klal. This is a sifra, and stam sifra mani Rebbe Yehuda. Point Nukuda. So finally, we found who are the Tanoim. Now we have Tanoim who hold that Shabbos is a Zman Tefillin, which is the only reason why they didn't make a macha when Michal Bas Shaul wore Tefillin. All right, Gavaldik. So we had a whole array of explanations in the Mishnah. Why the Tanakama says Zug Zug, why Rabbi Gamliel was more lenient and he said Shnayim, Shnayim. Now we're opening up a new topic, which is also very much connected to this detail of Chadashis, of Yeshanis, as we'll learn in a moment. Says the Gemara, Amar Rebbe Elazar, this is the Amoira. Again, a new din. Hamoitzi tcheles bashuk. You find woolen strips or woolen strings that are dyed with tcheles. We're going to somehow know that it's not indigo. It came taka from the chilazim. What's the issue? Something that's not visible. Was it dyed lishma or not lishma? And that is essential. So says Rabbi Elazar, if you find lishoinais strips, which was used not only for threads of the tzitzis, then you have to say you don't know whether it's lishma or not. So they are now psulais, they are invalid to be used for tzitzis. But if you find them already threads, if you find them chutim, then why else would someone make chutim? Chutim are only made for tzitzis, then it's kosher. Says the Gemara, Maishna Lushoin is the Amar, that Adaita the Gelima Tzavinu. The issue here again is not that maybe the source was not the Chilazim. The issue is what was the intent. If you find Lushoimis, maybe someone dyed these strips, to put them in your coat. Maybe Chutim Nami name Adaita the Gelima Tzavinu. So the Gemara adds another nuance, another detail that we're speaking about Bishizurim. Shizurim means that they were twisted together. If you look at your tzitzis right now, you'll notice that really every strand is made out of two, and every one of the two is made out of four. Every tzitzah on you, what you're wearing, right, if you have kasher tzitzis, is 8 strands together. We're going to learn a lot about that in Yuma, where that came from by the Big Day Kahuna, how they were twisted and twisted. This type of strand is only done for tzitzis. Now, can you not use it for something else? You could, but why would someone do it for something else? Maybe Shizurim Nami, even if it's twisted, people did use those strands when they would want to make some decorative hem. Maybe it was made for a decorative hem. The name Adaita, the Sifsa, the Gelima, Aifinu, it was twisted if you'd have a beautiful hem. So the Gemara adds another detail, that when is it kosher? Only bim mufsakim, only when they're cut into such short pieces that you can't use it for a hem. No, you can't use it for a hem. You can then sew it back together. But that's so much tircha. No one would, you cut it, you clearly, this is the way it is, it's only used for tzitzis. Now,
it sounds like this was the only challenge. Like they knew, like it's tcheles for sure. It comes from the chilazim.
It must be. They had a test. So I said, because other times we find, right, we learned this in Menachas. It's interesting, Taka. We learned in Menachas, side tefillin and side tcheles. Wow. Oh, here also. So it says, the kula alme vadai loitarche inshen. The kula if you have strands, not only are they mifuzadim, but they're cut into small pieces, we're not going to say that, you know what, it was made for a hem, but then people are gonna trouble themselves to reconnect them together. People will not go through that much trouble And that can allow you halachically to presume that it was done for tzitzis, meaning l'shem tzitzis. Says Rava disagrees with that. That v'chi adam toireach lasis kameya kamin tefillin. If you're saying that if you find something and so much trouble, it must be that it was done for the real thing. No, if that logic is there, then why did we have in our Mishnah that you have to see how the knots of the Ritzuos had God's holy name in it? And if not, maybe it's a kameya. Who would make a kameya to look like tefillin? You don't need that. Adam tereach lasis kameya kamein tefillin. It's very unusual that someone, but you see from our Mishnah that you're chayshish that. Maybe, after the Tanach, the second white line. This is our Mishnah that we just learned, is Rabbi Yehuda, that you can wear it, even though it's muktzah, is only because of Yeshanas. But by Chadashos per se, that you are pater. Pater means, we learned in the Mishnah yesterday, you're not allowed to wear it because a kameya you cannot violate the Rabbanon to protect the kameya. And maybe we're saying that it was made on kameya. There's a big, you would undergo such a tircha to make azak kameya to look like a tefillin. Maybe you underwent such a tircha to make a hem for a garment. So it should be psulos. So Rava challenges Rabbi Lazar. Omar Rab Zera la ahava berei. I'm waiting to hear this with all the new names that people give to their children. Hasta Rab Zera called the son love, ahava. He tells the son ahava. Rava's challenging Rabbi Lazar. Puk tani lahu. Go out and teach a braysa that clearly states what Rabbi Lazar said later. And he's quoting a braysa that other people did not know. Hamoitzi tchelas bashuk. If you find them l'shoynos, which makes it 50-50, it's very possible that this was taka not done l'shem mitzvah tzitzis, then they're psulim. Once you find them chutim, but here you see the beautiful addition, that are already mufsakim, and which means to make them into a hem, you have to undergo more tircha. The braysa says it's kshedim. Lefisha ein adam toireach. So it's probable that it was done l'shem tzitzis. So you see a braysa says that. Rava was not misspelled from the braysa. So Amar Rava, what are we shum the tani leyahava bereider abzeidah? Just because he's teaching a braysa, good. What kipei talibam? You should hang rings on it. That's a lashon to say. Is it that solid? In other words, he doesn't accept the braysa. He doesn't accept the braysa because of our Mishnah. So it's our Mishnah. When the Mishnah differentiates between chadashos and yeshanos, that argues with this braysa. V'hatanan, second to last line. And therefore Rava disagrees, and Rava says that I want you to know that you have a braysa, but this concept of when I want to know what happened, and I'm going to use this logic of that there's so much tircha. If this is for option aleph, so we can halachically say it's option beis, that type of proof is a machloikas tanoim, which will be the machloikas between our Mishnah and the braysa. And again, whenever you have a machloikas Mishnah and braysa, what Rabbi is really trying to say is we're going to side with the Tan of our Mishnah, and therefore he rejects Rabbi Lazar. It's never good. If you find chelas chutin and they're mufsakim and it looks like it was made for tzitzis, how do you know it was done lishma? No, if it was done for tzitzis, we can presume it was done lishma. Maybe it was made for a hem. Now, the Elomarava tarach v'loy tarach tanoyehi. And this is mamish how he explains the machloikas that we just learned between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda and the braysa b'negei chadashos and yeshanos. The Tanya moitzi tefillin, when you find tefillin, so the beginning is like our Mishnah. Machlis and zug zug. Here we have the addition echad ish ve'echad isha, as we just explained. Rav Meir holds that a woman is not allowed to keep a mitzvah aseh shazman gerama. Not allowed. Rav Meir allows a woman to wear it because Rav Meir holds that, like Rabbi Yehuda holds, that Shabbos is Zman Tefillin. Another detail, Echad Chadashos ve'Echad Yeshanos. Why can the woman wear or the man wear Chadashos? Because we can presume this was not made into a kameya. How do you know it was not made into a kameya? Why would someone have such a big tircha just to make a kameya, to make it like tefillin? For that you can make a stam an amulet. That's the shita. That's the words of Rav Meir. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda holds, which is what we learned in our Mishnah, that you can taka oiser bechadoshes. Maybe it's a kameya. why would someone be toirach? I don't know why, but maybe this is a kameya. You have to have more proof. You're only allowed if it's older tefillin, meaning again, the straps were unknotted. But on straps that are old, you can tell that they used to be knotted in the form of a dalid, of a yud, there used to be a shin, and that's a raya that it was tefillin because for a kameya they never made those knots. Alma we see, says Rava, that Mar Savan, that's Rebbe Yehuda, that tarach inish, and therefore you have to suspect, and therefore you're not allowed to take in the new tefillin, and therefore Rava is arguing that lefi the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, you would not be allowed to use the tchelas that you find, even if they are twisted together, even if they are small, that normally to make that further into a hem, you need even more tircha. However, Omar Savar, like you said, good, the Meir holds that we say loy tarach inish, and that allow us to determine that the tefillin that you found, even if you can't see whether they had the knots of God's holy name, no one is going to be toirach to make a kameya to look like a tefillin. It's a tefillin. And tak, according to Rav Meir, Rav Zmoida, if you find chutin that are both shezurin and they are mufsakim, then you can use them to put on your tzitzis. God willing to be continued.
Rabbi,
I'm not really. I want to come back to you, Danny. What was the question? Is that why, according to Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, if tefillin is mitzvahs asay shelo yazman garama, right? That's the question.
Right. So how can you say that guf naki would exempt women?
Does it make sense that because of the chashash, do we ever have such a thing? I want to. I'm sure this is spoken about.
And this last argument we learned here with Rava, I don't understand why he's like harping on this, that it has to go in line with each other. That tefillin, if you hold that you have to be concerned about tefillin, then you also have to be concerned about tzitzis. Why can't you just say that, no one would be tairach for strings, but maybe for amulets, for whatever reason, they used to do that? I mean, what's the...
You're speaking that because you live among Svardim.
That what?
That you understand how important amulets are. Certain people, they'll say, Adana, for amulet, they'll make it look like a super tefillin. But the Gemara rejects that. For amulet,
I'm just saying, it seems like something that matters. You look at like what actually went on. I don't know. All right.